I want to welcome everybody here this evening. I'm certainly glad that you came. It is a joy to be able to be here. I'll tell you something. I believe the subject this week is of the utmost importance. The subject this week has a whole lot to do with where our nation goes. This subject is so important because as we look at the struggles in this nation and we see the difficulties that are here, we look at the sin in this nation and the consequences of the sin and the problems that are being experienced. We're studying about the solution to those problems. And what's even more important is we're looking at the solution to help many of your neighbors go to heaven and not hell. Guys, they are counting on you and I. We need to take this subject extremely serious. We need to live it to the best of our ability. We need to learn it with everything that we are worth. I began learning this subject and became interested in this subject the first lesson that I preached almost 40 years ago at the age of 14 had to do with winning souls. My goals have not changed as I look into the eyes of those that I see on a daily basis. As I talked with the neighbor today that lives next door to Rachel, I looked at him as a soul and I recognized that he's misled. Guys, I believe this subject is of the utmost importance. And I believe that as Christians, we have a responsibility to do our best to learn how to reach our neighbors and teach them the gospel of Jesus Christ. Now I want to do a little house cleaning. Yesterday, I used a passage a couple times, and both times I am told that I said it was in 2 Peter chapter 2, verses 24 through 26. And there ain't no such thing, right? So, actually, I think that that's a good thing because now you're going to remember where it's at because it's in 2 Timothy, not 2 Peter. And you'll remember more about that passage. And hopefully you'll go back and focus on that verse and put it to memory and then put it to life in your own life. Because I'll guarantee you that if you will put that into your life as you strive to pray about your neighbors and work towards winning those that you come into contact with, that's a good one. And that one will bring about more success than you and I can imagine. Another thing with housekeeping, and that is that tonight I'm not preaching. We're going to be able to interact and talk about some of these ideas that I have because the subject tonight is how to make contacts. Now, tomorrow, I believe it's a little separate subject, and even though there's a lot of related things, but I want to study tomorrow how to set up a Bible study. Because they're actually two separate things, even though they are related, and each of them has their own challenges and things that we need to work to put into practice into our life. So that we can go from somebody that we meet in the community to somebody that we're actually sitting down and looking at the Word of God together with. And that can be tough. But I'll tell you what, it's actually pretty easy when we put a few things into practice. And so as we begin this evening, I want to begin by noticing some information that I think is very important. Let me ask you a question. What do you think, just from your own ideas. What do you think is one of the best things that we could do to make a contact that needs to hear the gospel of Jesus Christ? What do you think?
Knock doors.
Okay, knock doors. What else? Give me some other ideas.
Are you talking about strangers, or are you talking about people we know?
I'm talking about how can we find somebody that would be a contact? What do we need to do to go find somebody that we could work at setting up a Bible study with?
Be friendly.
Okay. Be friendly. Okay. Some other ideas. Give me some more things.
Just talk to people.
Talk to people. How many of us find it easy to talk to people? About 3 or 4. Okay. Not a whole lot. All right. And so, I think that's okay, because you don't not have to find it easy to talk to people, to make contacts, to get the Bible studies going. All right. Let me throw this out. How about going where the lost are at?
Depends on where that is.
Where are they? Where are the lost? What's that? Everywhere? Okay. What's that? Everywhere. All right. And so it doesn't matter. I mean, you can go to the park. Okay. Saturday I took a walk around Rachel's neighborhood, and they were out there fishing. I got to talk to some people there for a period of time, and I enjoyed that talk. This afternoon I walked out to the car, and there was Rachel's neighbor. And so I got to have actually a Bible discussion with that man for a period of time. Okay? And so we need to work at finding some things out. Now I'll tell you what. We've often heard the passage read, 1 Corinthians 15:33. Somebody quote it for me. What's it say? Okay. Be not deceived. Evil companions corrupt good manners or morals, depending on the translation that you're reading it out of, but that's what it means. Now, as we've looked at that passage, what did we focus on? Myself included, as we teach that passage. Stay away from everybody that is not godly. Because what do ungodly people do to us? No idea, right? They corrupt our good morals. Okay? Okay, now this is the whole point.
That doesn't mean you associate in their sin.
Right. And that's something that I think we need to work at. Yes?
I think we need to remember that verse that says, be in the world, but not of the world. There's a difference between being in the world and being of.
Okay.
Of course, that's what Paul had in mind.
Right, and then what she's saying is that we need to remember the passage that talks about being in the world, but not of the world. All right? Now, what do we, as I look around me, I'm seeing things that I think, and I'm going to tell you, I've preached that passage a lot of times. But it's kind of come to haunt me, because have you ever studied a lot of scriptures and you find out that there's another side to the story? Okay? Let's look at the other side of that story. Go with me to 1 Corinthians chapter 5. 1 Corinthians chapter 5. And I want somebody to read verses 9 and 10. 1 Corinthians chapter 5, verses 9 and 10. So, take that microphone around so whoever can. Who's going to read? Right there. All right. Go ahead and read that for us.
I wrote unto you in an epistle not to company with fornicators, yet not altogether with fornicators of this world, or with the covetous or extortioners or with idolaters, for then must ye needs go out of the world. But now I have written unto you not to keep company if any man that is called a brother be a fornicator, or covetous, or an idolater, or a railer, or a drunkard, or an extortioner, which with such an one know not to eat.
Okay. You notice that in this passage, we have the other side of this story. And a lot of times, we've taken 1 Corinthians chapter 15, verse 33, and we're trying to protect the members of the Lord's church. And we're trying to say, you need to stay away from people that influence you. But a lot of times, we don't stop and think, where are we actually going in that when we don't give a steady dose of the other side of the story? Where are we going?
Nowhere.
We're going nowhere. All right? Who are we actually spending our time with when we look at the one side of that story and not the other? Fellow Christians. And so if we're spending our time with fellow Christians, how many ungodly people are we meeting? Yes?
Oh, you said exactly what I was going to say. So if you don't spend time with those that aren't Christians, you're obviously not going to convert anybody, because the Christians are already Christians.
Okay, so this is the whole thing, guys. All right? We got another one up here. Got a comment.
How many of us actually work with Christians?
Say that again.
How many of us work with Christians?
How many of us work with Christians?
People of the world.
How many of us do?
Not very many.
Don's the only one.
Don's the only
Okay?
one. He works with himself.
Okay? He's a preacher, and so he spends a lot of time with Christians. We do that. All right? And so that's one thing. We do have those associations at work. Those of us that have work. All right? And this is why we're going to look at some of these things. But we're also, I want to challenge you guys. It is wonderful to be with Christians, isn't it? And when we are with Christians, it encourages and builds it up. In Acts chapter 2, we looked at that passage yesterday, and they were with one another daily. But when they weren't doing what they said, or what they were supposed to be doing, and that was to go, they started going everywhere, and then what were they doing? They was converting everybody all over the place, and they were obeying in multitudes, okay? And so the word was spread everywhere. Now, it is a lot of fun to be together, and we need that fellowship. But we also need to understand that we have a command to go into all the world and preach the gospel to every creature. And the thing is, the more we spend time only with one another, the more we have a tendency to not want to be around anybody that's ungodly. Because it is comfortable, it's fun, it's enjoyable. And it's nice. I love it. I love Christian fellowship. Guys, I want us to kind of rethink. Okay? I want us to balance these two scriptures. That passage in 1 Corinthians 15:33 is helping us to understand that you need to make sure that you've got some godly Christians that you associate with, and that you're going to be very careful of those that you associate with that have a tendency to influence you. But the passage in 1 Corinthians 5 said you better not go out of the world. You need to associate with who? People of the world. And what context did he use? What specific group of people? You name it. Okay? The fornicators and the worst of society. Do any of us really feel that comfortable with them? Stop and think about it. How many fornicators have you really sit down and had a conversation with lately? Maybe more than you realize? Okay. Yeah. That's exactly right. You know, as we look around, we find out that there's an awful lot of people out there that are living in ungodly lies. Guys, we need to get out of our comfort zone. Let me ask you a question here. Give me some ideas of some places that you could go to be with people that are worldly. I want specific things. I don't want everywhere, because that's true, but I want some specific things we can think about. Go ahead.
Well, I work downtown 13 I work downtown at 1300 Cherry, the jail down there. I'm around everything.
Okay.
And like we were talking about the other day, I get this one guy, I don't know what he's in there for because we're not allowed to know, but I give him, he asked about baptism, I give him a little verse, and I found out later he's going in there and passing that verse around to other people.
Okay. All right. And you're dealing with people that are in prison. And if I remember right, when we talked yesterday, you had talked about others that were interested because they hear about this, and there's others that are interested also. And you have got to ask the question, what do you mean? These people are in jail. Okay? Why do they want to know? They're the worst of the worst, right? Hey, they need it bad, and we need to keep that in mind. We need to keep that in mind. Okay, I think back here.
We had somebody that we disfellowshipped several months ago. He works at McDonald's, and I've been working on him. Mm-hmm. In other words, I go to McDonald's to see whether I can make contact with him and try to get him to come back. And that was my first duty.
Right.
But my second duty occurred when I sat down to eat an Egg McMuffin. And the guy sat a caddy across from me. But he opened the door first by talking about conservative ideas, conservative lifestyle on the farm. Then he switched gears on me and indicated that he was getting ready to go to church on Saturday, being a Church of God person. And we volleyed some ideas back and forth, verses as well. And when he got up to leave, I used the same line on you just a while ago. I said, I'm glad you got to see me.
Yeah.
And he backed up and said, do you really mean that? And I said, yes. He went to the counter and got coffee. And then he was getting ready to go out the door. And I caught up with him again, tapped him on the shoulder. I said, I'm glad you got to see me.
Yeah.
And right now I have a Bible study going through the mail with him because he's a great debater and I'm not a debater. And that's one of the things that you need to kind of let some of us know, that we're not debaters, how we can generate a Bible study.
And that's one thing that I establish real quick. I'm not here to debate. We're here to study. Okay? And I will not argue scriptures. Okay? But where you found yourself in McDonald's, you found somebody to study with, right? All right? So, McDonald's, does anybody go to that place called McDonald's ever? Are there ever people there? Do you think maybe, just maybe, that one of them might be lost? Okay? I'll get to you in just a second. Got a question here, comment.
Well, I was just going to say that naturally the people in the prison want to hear, because they're at the very bottom. And that has always been our experience. Those that are at the very bottom, they want Christ the worst.
That's right. And that's one thing that I think it's important we recognize, that these people that are in sin is devastating to lives. And they are searching for something. They want something better. They're looking in drugs. They're looking in alcohol. They're looking in immoral relationships with whatever. And so they're searching. Okay? We gotta make contact with them. Yes?
Visit the hospitals. Visit the sick.
Yeah.
The prisons, as Daniel said.
That's right.
There's a lot of people to visit. They visit the sick because they're hurting and they need some comfort, and you can reach them better, I believe.
You know, I've always said, as a preacher, I love funerals and I hate weddings. And you say, what do you mean? What I mean is that my desire is to help people, and nobody wants help at a wedding. Everybody wants help at a funeral. Now, 2 years ago, we went to a funeral. And we visited with all the people that we can. My wife and I, we sit down, we talk to this individual, we talk to that individual. And we finally, we sit down with one couple and visited with them. And long story short, we baptized one in that family, and that family still attends occasionally. All right? Case in point. We knocked on that door no less than 3 times with no success. Can I make a point? I think door knocking is good for certain things. And I'll guarantee you will win the loss with door knocking. But I also guarantee you something else. You'll probably win 10 to 20 times more by making personal contact with somebody in another way. Let me make this point. Okay, I'll get to you in just a second. You're sitting in your living room. Curtains are open. And you can see some people down the street. Dressed in nice clothes. And they're walking down from one house to the other, knocking on doors. Who are they? Mormons have a suit on. Okay, can I make a point? I dress this way for a reason. The vice president of the bank wants to talk to me and study the Bible. The drug dealer, he wants to talk to me and study the Bible. And everybody else in between. I think we've got to be careful. In the New Testament, we have 2 commands on teaching, on clothing. Tell me what the first one is. Modesty. It's on the bulletin board out front. It's a good one. It's a command. Remember what the second one is? Don't look down on somebody that does not have nice clothing. That's the New Testament. It's the only ones I've found in the New Testament. And so, let's be all things to all men. Okay? I've converted people that dressed filthy. And they were asked to leave and never come back when they went to a denomination if they couldn't dress better. And I told them, you come anyway. And you know what? He tries to dress up. Now, the reason he dressed that way is because he had a pretty dirty job. And when you have a dirty job, do you wear your nice clothes? Guys, I don't want to wear anything but jeans when I knock doors. Okay? You do what works in your community, but keep in mind, those people that work at Sears and those nice clothes, what do they do as soon as they get home? They change. All right? I want to be a friend to people. I want to be somebody they can relate to. And if I'm not on their level, if I'm above them, I've got a problem. I baptized people. Ron King was the one of those that said, if you'd come to me dressed that way, he said, I wouldn't have talked to you. But you know what? My banker talks to me. And I don't go in fine clothes. I dress this way for a reason. I was going to bring torn jeans and an old torn up shirt, but I didn't do it. Okay, I wanted you to go ahead and stay when you got here. But we need to be careful of that, okay? So let's go back. Got a comment here.
I was going to add to what Dan and Bob had said. You know, we talked about a jail. Those people are confined. Mm-hmm. Talk about a hospital. They're confined here for a certain amount of time. Also, you need to consider nursing homes.
Yes.
And those people are really,
that's right,
really lonely.
That's right.
And they like to talk, and they like to talk religion, and that's a good candidate for teaching.
Guys, misery is a terrible thing, but you need to be there when there's misery. Because people are looking for something, and they're at a stage. I think funerals are a good place. I think nursing homes are a good place. I think hospitals are a good place. And so we need to avail ourselves of these opportunities. There's a lot of pain out there and a lot of suffering. We need to go where they're at. How about, do we ever go to sporting events? None of you kids have sporting events? Good deal. Okay.
Recently, I was going to sign up for like a softball team just to meet people. I really don't want to play.
Wonderful woman. Wonderful lady.
I was going to do that. I was going to say earlier that I had just recently become San Diego on vacation. That's where Don Underwood, Randy Weissenhart, and one of the things I saw them doing that I learned is that they would rather spend money going into Starbucks, just sitting down meeting people, than having coffee along with someone.
Yeah. You know, I find, and of course I was out there with them, and I do this in my community. Okay? I'll go in, and when I've got time, I'll go sit down at a coffee shop. Now, you know, that Starbucks looks awful expensive, and so we got some cheaper places in town that I like to go to, and there's people there too. But we go, in fact, I sit down and have Bible studies there. And you know what that generates? People that sit at the next table, and they're listening to every word. You know? And I'm not pressuring them. I'm not jumping over there and say, hey, I'm trying to set up a Bible study with you. I just continue with the Bible study that I have going and allow the things to come. And you know what happens? After a few times that you've been there, when you come in, they're saying, are you here for your Bible study today? Well, yeah. Why do you think I came here in the first place? Because I wanted you to see. Contacts.
So how do we get the contact? How do you make the contact?
I go where lost people are at.
I understand that, but what do you say to them?
What do I say? We're going to talk about setting up a study. Okay? And getting the study set up. One of the things that I always do, whether I'm walking at Walmart, whether I'm at some community event, that incidentally there may be drinking there. Heaven forbid that a Christian's found in a community gathering where there are a few people that are maybe drinking a little wine or a little can of beer. And we had a big Newton deal going on not too long ago, and I had to be gone out of town. I think I was on our LeGrand Bible study, and I said, Eric, why don't you go? And he came back and he said, man, there's a lot of people drinking there. I said, was there any lost people there? He said, yes. I said, were you drinking? He said, absolutely not. I said, okay. And so we're supposed to be around fornicators, okay? I know that that's not comfortable. And I know that it's not a good situation. And I know there's times you're going to need to get out if there gets to be a problem, okay? I was at a wedding here some time ago, and they started drinking, and so it wasn't long I was out of there, okay? Because they were drinking a little bit too much, and it was not going to be a good thing. But they're lost people. And I know we feel uncomfortable. And we're not associating with sin. Guys, there are places that we can go. How many times will you find at a ball game that a couple of them may bring a beer or two? We may feel uncomfortable. But what we're trying to do is make a contact. All right? And so I develop people that I see. All right? Now let's deal with this, and I'm going to try to get back to this. Okay? Got a comment back here?
I've noticed sometimes I'll be trying to teach one man and you have somebody with him, and the one with him is sitting there listening. He'll be the one that's converted. I don't know why that is. And there's another, yep. I don't know, you remember David Dalton?
No.
You don't? He had a knack for taking just a regular envelope and put right on there, take one, and he'd take a thumbtack and tack it up on the bulletin board wherever, a store or whatever, and he'd put little tracts in there, a little Bible study. He got a lot of studies that way.
That's right. There's a lot of opportunities like that. I'll tell you what I do. As I go around people, I just kind of watch. You notice I look at eyes? Did you ever catch that? Does it make you feel uncomfortable? Yeah. Eyes tell a story. Okay? We don't always know that we know what the story is, but they tell a story. Okay? When I walk through Walmart, I really don't push anything. I mean, I can go up to a door a lot of times knocking doors, and if I got just a tiny bit of edge, I can keep pushing until I can get something going with them there. I may not go further, but I try to make eye contact. And when I'm in a crowd, if I make eye contact with any one individual, they're fair game. Okay? Fair game simply means that I'm going to go up to them and say, hey, how you doing? It's good to see you. I'm glad you're here today. How's it been? What you been up to? You know, you liking the weather? I'm naturally a hermit. That's you just asked Dorothy. Okay? The Apostle Paul said he became all things to all men that he might by all means save some. I had to change my personality to reach the lost. Okay? And she'll back me up. Okay? My desire is to not be around people. But I can't win souls that way. Okay? And so I look for people. I look for eye contact. And anybody that's got eye contact, guess what? I'm going to start asking them a question. I don't have to be able to carry a conversation. I just let them carry the conversation. You want somebody to think you're a very intelligent person? Ask questions and listen. And they're going to think you're the smartest person that there ever was. And I'll tell you what. We'll figure out how to set up a Bible study with them. What about, have you ever come across an individual or maybe a group of people and you see somebody that, you know, they're just kind of sitting down and they're not very happy? Have you ever watched? Do you watch people? Do you watch souls when you're in a crowd? And they're sitting there and they're just kind of off by themselves and they're lonely.
You know why? They can't hear.
You can tell he's over 50 and he's losing his hearing. I'll tell you what. I think every one of us needs to look in a crowd and we need to look for somebody that's lonely. You don't even have to make eye contact with them, okay? It's not necessary. You look for somebody that's kind of holding off to themselves. There's a good chance that they've got some struggles in life. Be perceptive to what's on people's minds. I tell you what, you can look in somebody's eyes and you can tell if they're happy. You can tell if they're sad. You know, you can tell if they're just kind of who cares. You know. Read people. Body language. What does this mean? I'm bored. I'm tired of this. And I want out of here. Okay? What does this mean? Thinking. I'm interested in what you've got to say. I care about you. Okay? If you learn to read people, you're going to have to be where the people are. I don't care if it's at McDonald's. I don't care if it's the prison. I don't care if it's some community event. I don't care if it's Walmart walking through the aisles. I don't care if it's at school. How many guys, you know people at school? Do you ever see people at school, guys? Very many in a day's time? Just a couple? Just a little bit? Are any of them lost? Are any of them, do they ever make eye contact with you in the hall? She doesn't want to admit it, okay, what they do. All right? Do any of them ever look discouraged and unhappy? What about at work? Okay? Do we meet people at work? And that's, Leland made that comment a while ago. We see people at work, and that's right. Okay? But I tell you what, that can get limited. We've got a whole city out here. And how many of them are lost? You know, do you ever go to the city hall meeting? Do you ever get involved in community organizations such as, I'm on the Newton Housing Development Corporation. I've already had several contacts through that, and it's only been a few months. And it's branched out to others. Guys, we need to be where the lost people are. We need to get this thing out of our mind that evil companions corrupt good morals, and that we need to entertain one another and have a lot of fun together, and we're all going to go to heaven together. Guys, I got news for you. That's going to destroy our nation. And I'm concerned about our souls because we need to get out of the building and into the streets and with our neighbors. And I'm going to tell you what, door knocking's good. But that's not going to win a lot of souls. 1 in 1,000 is a good advantage. Is a good statistic. But I'll tell you what, you get involved in that ball game, and you look at every single person that you meet, your team players, the people that's in the audience, and you seek for one. Very likely one of them will obey the gospel. Do you know what's going to happen if you knock on their door? They're going to say, "Come to the Jehovah's Witness, let's close the door." And I'm not telling you not to knock doors. We're going to do it this summer. We're going to be doing it at the end of May, and we're going to knock some doors. Incidentally, I told you yesterday about Walmart. We went back to get Dorothy's gloves, and lo and behold, there's another contact. Wonderful man and his wife, and we got to visit with them and enjoy their company for a little while. And then after we left, we saying we got to get a study set up with them. And they ended up following us out of the parking lot, and I'm kind of watching as we go down the street. And we got to one area in town where we were turning left, and I said, "I'm going to watch and see which way they're going." I said, "Could these live in these apartments?" Sure enough, they went straight. I know where they live. So guess where I'm going to be knocking doors? Let me ask you a question. How many times this week have you prayed that God would lead you to a person that you could teach the gospel to? How many of you prayed that? I want all of us to pray it. Starting today. I want all of us to pray, "God, lead me to somebody to teach." And then get off the easy chair and get out in the community and find somebody. Okay? I don't think we pray about it like we should. Did Jesus command to pray, "The Lord of the harvest send forth laborers"? Was that a command or a suggestion? Did Jesus say, "Seek and ye shall find"? Are we seeking? Guys, the contacts are there. We need to get out of our comfort zone and get involved in the lives of those that are ungodly, or we're not going to reach them. In fact, do any of us believe in the age of miracles? I put my hand down. So, in other words, what you're telling me is we can't just pray about it and expect God to throw it in our lap? We're going to have to do something. Okay? I really believe that as Christians, we have forgotten our responsibility. Sometimes I get hard on us because I'm us. Okay? I honestly do not think we're doing our job. I think that we're entertaining one another, and I think that we're faithful in our attendance, and I think we're doing what we should be doing. And I think that's why we're not winning the lost. I'm going to tell you something. I do not believe for 1 second that there's not a lot of lost people in this community that will obey the gospel. They may be hard to find. It may be a struggle. You might have to get involved in a ball team. You might have to go somewhere where the community people are at the park where there's something going on, maybe a concert going on. Okay? What about the coffee shop? Why don't two of you go and sit at the coffee shop and just have a Bible study? I set one up like that here last winter. And me and a brother just went and we just sat down and studied the Bible. Well, here somebody comes and of course I'm watching everybody. You know, we're studying at the same time and I had a different plan at the time. And this one guy came by and, he made eye contact. He's in trouble. And I set up a study with him. A lot of them, they just walk by and say, "Well, that one's toast. That one's toast." I care about them all. But guys, they're contacts. And we need to do our best to reach them. Let's get the microphone here.
I just want you to tell them about your NA meetings.
That's one thing. How many of you have you ever involved with Alcoholics Anonymous or Narcotics Anonymous? Give me 5, man. All right. You're my man. I'll tell you what. You know how many contacts I've made in the NA group? How many people I've got to study with? I haven't converted anybody yet. But you know, I've had numerous ones of them come to services. I wish we had the facilities that we could get the Narcotics Anonymous to meet in our building. They're going to that place where they meet all the time. And they're hearing false teaching. And they're sipping that alcoholic wine. And it's wanting to inflame their desires. What about you? Do you have time to go maybe once a month to some meeting where there's a bunch of alcoholics and drug users that are trying to change their life? You deal with them every day, don't you? You better believe it. And you know what? They're hurting and they're wanting something better. And the thing is, they're in a situation that you can work within their realm and find someone to teach. But we don't feel comfortable there, right? And we don't want to associate with ungodly people, right? Guys, we need to change our thinking if we're going to win the lost to Christ. We need to get out of this building and get out into the community. Go out and get ice cream tonight and see who's there at the ice cream store. Go fishing tomorrow afternoon or Saturday and see who's there at the fishing bank. Okay? Do you have any idea why I bought a bigger boat? So I could get more lost people in it. You put a lost soul in the boat and they're stranded until you get back to shore. Everything, guys, everything is an opportunity to make a contact. You've got to get out there and get with them, or you won't do it. Yes?
I had one, when I first started, I was scared stiff of all those inmates. And I worked in laundry, and he came with me, he said, "We're all human." I was like, "Well, yeah." I said, "It doesn't make me feel any better." He said, "We're all human, but the only reason I'm in here is because I lost my wife because she wanted to be with somebody else. Then I went to alcohol, then I went to stealing." I said, "Then why didn't you go to the Bible?" He said, "I need someone to teach me."
Okay. Now, let me tell you something. What he's saying there, it's every day with me. Okay? But we as Christians, we're not rubbing shoulders with those people. It was scary, very scary for me to sit down with Ron King. He spent a lot of years in prison for murder, and he beat everybody up. And I knew the family. And you know what? They all beat everybody up. And I was sitting there telling him, "You're going to have to change your life if you want to go to heaven." He was the greatest man. I love him dearly. He's passed on. Took me 6 months. He'd call every single day. "I want to bust his face in." And then after 6 months, he was calling me saying, "Would you come over here and set up a Bible study with this person?" Guys, those people are hurting. They've been in difficult situations. They've been involved in ungodly behavior. And we need to be there to catch them. But we're not. We're going to potlucks. Go over and visit a brother or sister in Christ. It's not that we don't need those things. But we're not getting involved in the lives of the people that are lost and are hurting. Do we know our neighbor? Have we been talking with them across the fence? Have we invited them over to our house and say, hey, come on over and have coffee? We used to do that with a couple in Jamesport, and we'd go down to their house, drink coffee. They'd come to our house and drink coffee, and we had lots of good studies together. I didn't convert them. But we did share the Bible together. Are we associating with our neighbors? Guys, there's so many opportunities. You notice the Apostle Paul, look at some of the things that he did. In Acts chapter 17, turn over there real quick. Where was it? Somebody read Acts 17, verse 17. Where did you find out where the Apostle Paul was at?
Him.
Okay, and then we go ahead and read verse 19. Let's get all those in there.
And certain philosophers of the Epicureans of the Stoics encountered him, and some said, what will this babbler say? Others some, he seemeth to be a setter forth of strange gods, because he preached unto them Jesus and the resurrection. And they took him and brought him unto Areopagus, saying, May we know what this new doctrine whereof thou speakest is.
Okay, find me 3 places there that the Apostle Paul was making contacts. Synagogue was one of those. The market. Areopagus. That's what I was looking with. So we don't know where that daily was there. But we do know that there's 3 places that the Apostle Paul was involved in. One of them was a place of worship. One of them was a place, and there's possibilities there. We have to be careful what we get involved in. We cannot fellowship error. We cannot be involved in false worship. But you know what? If I had an opportunity to teach in a group that were involved in denominational error, and I could do that in a way that would not violate Scripture, do you think I'd go? You better believe I would. Let me ask you another question. Do you think I'd beat them over the head with what I want them to hear right away? No. They'd never invite me back. That study I had this afternoon with my neighbor, Rachel's neighbor, he prayed for me that my back would miraculously heal. And I let him. But it wasn't time to teach him that he was wrong. He's a good man. He's been involved in these teachings, and he doesn't understand what the Bible teaches. So I shared with him a few things that if he will go back and look at those things, it will lead him to look at some more. But also I've left him with a taste in his mouth about the Lord's church. That we're not mean people, vindictive, and just want to get in his face. Am I concerned that he's lost? Yes. Do you think I would have saved him or taught him and he'd accepted the truth if I'd have taken those few minutes to jump all over him and tell him all about that? Absolutely not. Do I worry or get very concerned about somebody that I'm sitting down and teaching and I know that I can't close the study right now because we spent 2 hours studying about the fact that there is really a God? So is it time to teach them the plan of salvation? I don't think so. Guys, we need patience. We need to be like Paul and go wherever people are. Did Jesus find himself in parties? He had a reputation. Do you think that there was no foundation to that reputation whatsoever? He was involved with publicans and harlots. Are we? Now, let's not forget 1 Corinthians 15:33, right? Because if we forget it, we'll end up having too much influence that draws us away. Is that going to be a good thing? Do you think that we're wise enough to make some determinations? All right, I need to pull back here. I need some Christian fellowship. You know, we need this hit and miss. We need to get in there and try to make some contacts, get a little going with them, and then make a friend. Okay? Now, that's going to be one of the major things that we're going to have to do if we're going to set up a study. Now, we'll look at that a whole lot more tomorrow night. All right? And we're going to discuss how do we turn this contact around to an individual that has actually said, yes, I will study the Bible with you. And it's not that hard. It's a challenge. It takes time. Most people will say no. Some of those that say yes won't show, and they'll never have time. We've got a couple that they've said yes several times, and we've set up times, and we've been over to their house numerous times, and we want to study, and never works. That's okay. I've got enough studies. It's kind of nice when they cancel. I don't mind. We want to turn it around. The number one thing we need to do to make contacts is to pray. The number two thing is what? Go where they're at. Okay? Jesus told us to pray because God is still working. Okay? I think we need to have a great faith in prayer. And then I think we need to work as though it depends on us. But guys, we need to pray and we need to go. And we will make contacts to study the Bible with. I will guarantee it. I'll guarantee it. Now, let me stress a few things here. We're running out of time. My banker and my lawyer takes a whole lot of different approach to set up a study with than the fornicator that's involved in drugs. The individual whose life has been racked and they're miserable because of the sin that they've been involved in. Then the narcotic user that is trying to get rid of this stuff out of their lives. You've got to use a totally different approach and a totally different process. Does that tell us anything, though? What do you think that might tell us? Say it again. Everybody's different. Okay? Being all things to all people. All these are good things. I'm still looking for something else, though. These are good comments. Super. And very important. Yes?
And then people have a hard time seeing your deeds when they think they heard everything going their way.
Oh, my. Isn't that the truth? People that have it all together, it's hard for them to see. Okay? It sure is. I want to add something to that. Maybe we need to be spending more time with those people that are more receptive to study the Bible. I read Luke 4:18 yesterday. Jesus came to the poor, the downtrodden, and the brokenhearted. Sinful lives is what causes that. Guys, We're probably all either members of the Lord's church or involved in that deeply here this evening. And we're here because we have a desire to win the lost. But we're struggling with, why is the church not growing like it should? We're trying to find out, well, what we can do? What programs can we initiate to actually bring more lost into the church? And so we advertise and we have gospel meetings. And very few come, and we're saying, what are we doing wrong? We look at the denominations and we're scratching our head because they're doing things that aren't scriptural. But they get big numbers, and we're saying, what's going on? What can we do? And we're figuring, what's wrong? I believe we're the enemy. I believe we need to get out of our seats, and I believe we need to get out of our comfort zones, guys. I believe that we need to get out into the community and get into people's lives that are hurting. We need to protect ourselves. We need to make sure that they don't influence us to be like them. But we need to share. We need to listen. We need to be caring about what's going on in their lives to help them to know that there's a better way. And if we don't do it, who do you think's going to? It's amazing to me. So many times I don't even have to set up studies because it's like that guy that I talked to this afternoon. I didn't have to bring up the Bible because he's all excited about it. And he's wanting to tell me about it. And we're afraid to say anything. Why are we afraid? Guys, there's so many souls out there that are hurting and they're crying out for the gospel. They're pleading with us, even though they don't know it, to share with them that message. They're pleading with us to get involved in their lives and let them see a good example. Let them see people that are happy. Let them see people that have a message of hope beyond today. And they're counting on you and me to do it. And we can. We can do it, guys. But we got to get out there and make those contacts. Friday I got a text from Jared, her wife, Anna. She said, we just got word. 17-year-old boy has just been killed in a car crash. But the good news is he obeyed the gospel 3 weeks ago. I don't know how many of you are Christians here. Maybe all. Maybe not. Fell asleep, we believe, on the way home from an after-school late night party, not a drinking party. Do you know you're going to be alive tomorrow? Just for as a question, do you know you're going to be alive tomorrow? You have no idea. Well, you don't know that your neighbor's going to either. Many times I've talked with a friend of mine in Jamesport and I scrape them up off the road that night. Drag them out from underneath the tractor. Load them up on a gurney and put them in an ambulance. They're done. You don't know that you have tomorrow, and that's why Christ has come to this world. He lived and showed us how to live. And then He provided a way to go home. And that way to go home is so simple. So easy to understand by just spending time in God's Word to gain faith. Romans 10:17 is so easy. You know, and we wonder why we stress study the Bible. And you know what? You can't please God without faith. There's no way. You can't do it. That's Hebrews 11:6. And so let me ask you a question. If faith comes by hearing, and hearing by the Word of God, can you please God without Bible study, guys? Ain't going to happen. Pretty clear, pretty plain, pretty simple. Problem with studying the Bible, and I see it all the time as I study with people, and just to see their eyes open up. And they say, wow, I never saw that before. And sometimes they say, man, I didn't know I was doing that and it was wrong. Because you see, as you study the Bible, you recognize that there's things in my life that got to change to be pleasing to God. That's what you call repentance when we change. And God commands everybody to do it. And the memory verse, Acts 17:30. Everybody's got to change. And that Ethiopian eunuch said, what's stopping me from being baptized, man? You know, remember how the Apostle Paul said, be all things to all men? To the Jew, he was like a Jew. To them that are under the law, as under the law. To them that are without law, he was as one without law, though not without law to Christ. Do you act the same around your banker that you do the immoral neighbor? They act different. They think different. Well, let's remember that. But they don't get involved in sin, do they? You see, confessing Christ has a whole lot more to do than just saying, I believe that He is. Because you know what? When you say that He is the Son of God, you're saying He's got a right to tell me what to do. That's kind of nice, and I want Jesus to tell me what to do. As I read His Word, I'm looking at that and I'm saying, wow. As I obey what He says, I'm thinking, wow, this is a good plan. Because it blesses everything in my life when I follow what He says. I want to confess that Jesus Christ is the Son of God. Then we'll go down in that watery grave of baptism to wash away those sins, to contact the blood of Jesus Christ. The spiritual circumcision that cuts off the body of sins from our death, from our life. It just gets rid of them. What an amazing thing. A transformation. Because when we come out of that water, we're different. If we die as Andrew did at 4:30 Friday morning, after we've come out of that water, if we're faithful to God, we're going home and it gets good. Now, if you haven't done that, I'm telling what, you need to do it. Because that's the first step. But the second step is, be thou faithful unto death, and I'll give thee a crown of life. You see, as a Christian that's come back up out of that water, they have a responsibility to live the way God tells them to live. Now, it'll bless your life. I'll guarantee you. I'll tell you what, young people, you want a great life? You want a great life? Live for God. You follow what He says, and I'll guarantee you, you'll have an amazing life. It's super. It's fantastic to be able to see the blessings that come. You know, as I treat my wife good, you know what? It just gets better. She treats me better. Can you imagine treating me good? She does. You know, as I do a good job at work, you know what happens? Things go better. You know, I didn't always preach. I used to work one of them factory jobs. I had several of them. I've had some of those ditch digging jobs also. I didn't like them too well. But you know what? Following God blesses your life. But the problem is, if you don't follow God as a Christian, the worst part is you're going to lose your soul. Studied with a good, wonderful couple here about 3 weeks ago, and this one's always fresh on my mind. Rachel asked me the other day, she said, How come you didn't use that illustration? That's because I got new ones all the time. I've got new people. Okay? She believed wholeheartedly in once saved, always saved. The first time we sit down to study, she said, well, I want to know what you believe about that. Well, the study was about over. We'd studied for about 2 hours. And they wanted to keep going. And I said, well, let's just turn over to this passage in James chapter 5, verses 19 and 20. And I said, would you read that? She read that, and she had a lingering gaze. Okay? She read it again to herself and probably read it 2 or 3 more times. She says, so what do you think? I said, we'll study it later. Should I just leave that verse with you? Guys, you're going to have to live faithful to God. That woman is a Christian now. And she's growing in the Lord. Sometimes Christians, I think in their life they believe once saved, always saved. Because it's just kind of easy to go about our own ways. It's so easy to put Christ on the second burner. You know, the kingdom, you know what? Yeah, it's really important. It's the most important thing except the football game or whatever. We need to remember that it's got to be the first and most important thing in our lives. And it's going to have to be that till death. Is that the way it is in your life? I hope it is. Guys, if there's anybody here this evening that would need to respond to the invitation for any reason, the invitation's for that reason. Come as we stand and sing.